to bringing stories to life. This is a session that we've designed to meet the needs of our members, our networks. We sent out a form and people said that they'd like to have a bit more training around how we deliver our stories, the practice of that. But what I'm also going to do is link the importance of rehearsal of language and how we can do that through our exposure to stories. Once we've exposed the children to stories, how do we get them to rehearse that language that we've newly introduced? So how are we going to get that balance between introducing the language and allowing children to practice that language? So in this webinar, we're going to look at using stories to introduce new language and ideas, how to reinforce keywords. We will look at the best start in life recommendations. So that's the Ofsted research reviews. We'll also look at another Ofsted document that they did around early development, which is also very useful. We'll look at involving parents, what the research tells us, and developing inclusive practice. So we really like to help you feel really confident about being research informed. What are the approaches you can use that are based on research evidence that are going to make a difference to children's development? So that's what we'd love for you to take away from this session. So I am hoping that you might take away 2 actions from this session. If you just come away with one, that's fine, as long as you action it from tomorrow. So try to have something to jot something down on, a piece of paper, a back of an envelope, a notebook, something that you would like to do to enhance your practice that you have gained from this session. How best to introduce language, think about that. How best to give children opportunities to practice their newfound language. And keep a note of any questions that pop up as we go along. And I'm happy to answer those at the end. And also, as we go through, you may think, actually, this is something we do that is really beneficial. We found it to work really well. This is a great way of bringing stories to life. This is a wonderful way to help children with developing their language. And this would be a really nice situation to share that with other practitioners. So do jot all those things down, and we will have time at the end for questions and reflections. So when you are delivering a story, these are elements that you need to consider. You might want to dress up. We know that some of our children need that extra support to attend to a story. They might need more visuals. It's always a good idea to make sure you have ample visuals so that there's some dual coding going on, so that they're hearing the language and they're seeing the visuals that go with that language that will support them in understanding what you're talking about. Consider having props, repeated refrains. So if the story you are exposing the children to does not have repeated refrains, think about any refrains that you could invent to add to the story so that the children have some involvement as well. They have some opportunity to chorally respond. When you're delivering that story, think about the tone of voice you're using. Think about the appropriateness of the speed at which you're talking. Is it beneficial in certain parts of the story for you to be completely silent, or to hide behind your book, or to go right down to a whisper? Be quiet at that moment. So think about your tone of voice a thing that I think I had to work on quite a lot was not being too high pitched when I was speaking, or when things got quite excitable in the space. That's something very useful to consider as well, because children can lose focus when the pitch is too high. They can be unsettled by that as well. Think about your eye contact as well. It's really useful to be making specific eye contact with the children, with those who need more help with sustaining attention. We know there are some children that will divert their gaze. Don't insist too much with those children who find eye contact a little intimidating, but do aim to give really meaningful connection to all of the children at some point that you are delivering a story to, whether that be a small group, a larger group. Make sure you're not just speaking to one child. Make sure you're using gesture, but your gesture needs to be planned for in your head, that you're not making an overuse of gesture, but your gesture really adds to the language that you want to reinforce. You might be very proficient in using Makaton. We absolutely encourage the use of Makaton. That does help a lot of children with understanding some of the key language that you're using in your text. And think about the rhythm that you're using. Incorporating rhythm into your storytelling really draws attention to the words, the specific words that you want to reinforce. Consider inventing a little jingle, tapping some words out as you go at different stages of the storytelling. Now, I was going to share also the image here is of a parent who's been invited in to share a story that was dear to her when she was a child. She's come in dressed up, she's used some props from the nursery, and she's also got a book to go with it. You don't have to have a book with your storytelling if you feel you can remember the story and the order in which things happen. But here we can see a really nice incorporation of the book, the telling, the gesture, the dressing up, and the use of the props. So this quote here is actually from the child development training, which is free. It's on the government website. It's from module 4, which is specific to learning about communication and language, for practitioners to develop their practice around communication and language, and how to improve your environment so that they're language rich. So the research shows a strong link between the number of words a child hears in the first 3 years of their life and the quality of their language development. So thinking about those words that you really want to reinforce is key. We don't want to overload our children and use too many words, but we really need to be mindful that that key language needs to be planned for. We need to make sure that we have opportunities in our environments to practice those words that we have exposed the children to, and we need to have high expectations for all of our children. Now, there are a lot of notes here that I thought would be useful for you. They're all quotes from module 4 of the child development training, which you can refer back to. We'll send these to you, but do also consider signing up to the child development training, because it is invaluable in helping support you in your practice and be evidence informed at the same time. So The Best Start in Life, which was written by Ofsted, quotes the quality, we are quoting from them, the quality of the curriculum is especially important for children who have less help with their early literacy learning at home. So they're also looking at some of the EEF documentation where the Education Endowment Foundation has put together the educational research to help inform practice, and their remit is specifically to help children who are at an economic disadvantage. So Ofsted is recognising this as well, that those children at an economic disadvantage really do struggle to keep up with their development, especially their development in language. And that exposure to books is really helpful for this. And so if we involve our parents in schemes such as the Imagination Library, making sure they sign up and get those books every month from the Dolly Parton scheme or from Book Trust, you're not entitled to a book at every stage of development. I think for the baby stage, it's universal. Everyone receives a book at that stage, either from their library or from their health visitor. If you would like to apply for the packs for your setting, if you have children who are at some disadvantage, either economically or have additional needs, or they might even speak another language at home, there are packs that you can apply for as a setting. So the Best Start in Life also refers to quality picture books making a massive difference, because you're exposing children to language that you wouldn't normally use with such young children. So the variety of sentences is going to really help children develop that language. As we said before, the more words they're exposed to and the more interesting those structures are, the more they're going to learn. Obviously, we are adapting how much language we're using according to the level of those children. So according to their starting points. So if we're teaching new vocabulary through texts, a really crucial part of that is thinking about the particular words that you want to expose the children for. It's really helpful to plan for that, really intentionally. And so Ofsted are saying a crucial part of communication and language is introducing new vocabulary to children and doing so as early as possible. So having those early high expectations, regardless of age, regardless of starting point, narrating what we do, adding a word to what we pick up, just making sure we're intentional and always using language accompanying what we do and the stories that we are exposing our children to. To be able to teach children new language, it's essential that you know the children's starting points. And that's where you're going to build from. So this little display here is a book that's often used, The Very Hungry Caterpillar. At this time of year, there are lots of insects around. So the children might encounter caterpillars. That's something that they're going to find in their outdoor spaces, maybe in their own gardens or in the nearby park. Drawing attention to that language is essential. And the lovely thing about this text is there are lots of really lovely images that draw the child in and very easy to accompany with real props, such as the different types of foods. And I've seen it in our setting, and I've also seen it in various other settings where the different fruits have been purchased, and then the children have had a chance to taste those in the continuous provision, or maybe as part of a little planned group. So making sure there are those opportunities to revisit the language that you expose the children to from the text. That is you bringing the story to life in your space, in your continuous provision. So if we were looking at that text particularly, you can see that it's linking to the other aspect that you may have in your curriculum around looking at mini beasts. You're linking it to the fact that at that time of year, you might be seeing butterflies in your outdoor spaces. You might be lucky enough to find things in your garden, such as the caterpillar, and then put that into your butterfly house that you can then watch. And in this middle image, you can see the chrysalis that's attached to the butterfly house, and then the children are going to get to see the different stages of its development, just as they do in the story. So you're bringing that story to life by making it happen in real life and giving plenty of opportunity for the children to revisit those words and those ideas. If you don't have cabbages in your outdoor area, you probably won't come across a cabbage white butterfly. There are people who purchase their kits where they get the eggs of the caterpillars and then watch them develop that way. I think it's really nice if you're able to find these things in the wild, but failing that, there are the kits that you can go and purchase. So the research evidence, let's look at more of it. They're telling us that interactive reading is a great way to develop children's early language skills and vocabulary, and can benefit all children. So it's universally beneficial. And there's really strong evidence that it especially impacts children who are experiencing poverty and those with less developed oral language, those who have had less experience of communication. Now, this quote here has come from a lovely blog written by Lauren from the EEF. And at the end, I've put a link to that blog. It's really short. It's really helpful. It summarizes a lot of the things that we're talking about today. And this reference to interactive reading, you will find on the Education Endowment Foundation's development store. They have different sections. They've got a section on literacy and a section on communication and language, and both of those refer to interactive reading, having lots and lots of research to support it really having a massive impact on children's development of their language and their literacy. So, yes, we want to expose children to a story in a really enticing, exciting way. Use rhythm, use song, use jingles. But where we can, let's get the children practicing that language as we tell it. It is a fine art to get the children to chorally respond without things falling apart. You need to do that by practicing it. The more you do it, the more it becomes part of how you deliver a story. But then next, we need to give opportunities for children to practice, to tell the stories themselves, to revisit that language, to have a go at naming some of the different fruits that they've come across in their environment. Here, there is a group of very young children having a look at a story, and they are simply commenting on what they see and the practitioner is building on the comments that the children offer rather than reading the story to them. That's what interactive reading is. Now, in the development store, the EEF also notes that actually it's the adult's engagement with the children that matters even more than the type of book. So this is why they're universally recommending the approach of interactive reading, because it's used as a conversation starter. Children are quite attracted to books, they're attracted to the illustrations. It's simply there to help start a to and fro interaction. So you could also consider echo reading, because I have also had the experience of some practitioners coming to me and saying, but the children don't want to say anything because they're so used to listening to me reading, they're just waiting for me to read. In that case, I do suggest sometimes breaking down the story and you reading and then the children saying and echoing it back, and then you reading with expression and then they echo it back. One of the things we haven't spoken about, which probably should be on the first slide, is the need for the practitioner to be really expressive with their face. This really enhances children's understanding of emotions, as well as the words that you're using. They're gathering information about what is usual when we're happy. What type of face do we make when we're confused? What type of face do we make when we're hiding? So in this book, the character, the monster, is hiding in different places. And so the practitioner is looking a little bit worried because we're not sure where the monster might be. That expression of worry is really important to show on the face. And then find ways for the children to use their voices in these situations of interactive reading. You might want to develop this skill in a one-to-one interaction, or maybe with two children sharing a story and then building to a slightly bigger group. You might start with trying to get the children to join in with a repeated refrain, where you've chosen a story like We're Going on a Bear Hunt, where there is a repeated refrain. Everybody knows when it's coming. You repeat that refrain. You might ask questions at different stages of the story to get the children to think about what might happen next, or what would they do in this situation. That way you're inviting their language. You may give actions, you might give chants for the children to join in. And remember that when you're commenting, you're opening up further discussion for the children. If you're commenting, you're modeling that for the children. So when they encounter a story and you want to interactively read with them, they know how to comment on a story. It's not new to them. And remember the power of I wonder statements. So this image here is from a lovely video that was done actually on it was filmed on a very, very hot day. So do consider that when you see the video. I've put a link at the end for you to see this video if you haven't already. And it's an example of what interactive reading looks like. And these are some of the practices that the practitioner uses. And these are really useful practices for all of us. Commenting. So that's when we provide a sentence to explain what's going on or what we are noticing. You might be extending, where a child has given one word and they said, this child actually says, that fish is saying, I don't know where to go. Don't quote me on that, it's not precise, something like that. And the practitioner comments, I wonder why they don't know where to go. So she's extending, she's expanding on what the child has said. The other child uses one word. She says fish, and the practitioner acknowledges that and says, yes, it's a really big fish. So she adds, but not too much. So she tailors what she's doing for the different children. You might use repetition and by revisiting the same book again and again. This is a really beneficial practice for many of our children who are hesitant with their language, maybe not as confident. Revisiting the same text really helps boost their confidence. You may use repeated refrains, or you might repeat single words. You might use explaining, where you come across a word that you think might be a little unusual for the children. So then you provide a bit more information. And this is where you need to be using some visuals or maybe a real object to reinforce that language. There is another thing that this practitioner uses that isn't mentioned, but I think as practitioners we do that quite a lot, and it's really useful. You leave a gap for the child to fill. So it's like giving a sentence starter for your child then to end with the final word or the final phrase. And I can see here all of these. The child says fish swimming away. So it gives the child an opportunity to give their language at their level. So if it's only one word that they can give, you're boosting their self-esteem because they've managed to use that word to actually contribute to a whole sentence. So over time, you want to shift that balance so the child is doing more talking when you're interactively reading. The child leads the discussion more about the book. And this is what we call interactive reading, when the child is leading the discussion and the adult is simply scaffolding and adding to the language. So how do we make our environment language rich? This is a little bit out of focus, but it's an image that shows using the props that you have in your area to support the retelling of what the ladybird heard. So all the different animals that are on the farm are going in their different spaces. You might use boxes, you might use a block of wood to use for the different spaces on the map that you see in the middle of the story. You might want to act this map out and provide a little pond for the terrible guys who are going to come and steal the prize cow to fall into. You really don't have to go out and buy props. You can use objects that you have in your setting, giving opportunities for the children to act out in the small world, but also to act out and embody in their whole body are really, really useful ways for children to revisit the same language again and again. We want to have children exposed to a lot of drama, a lot of acting out. For some children that comes naturally, so for some children we need to model that. So here we have a practitioner that is actually modeling a play form that was very popular for the children. So they're having a little picnic, and she actually wants to reinforce some mathematical language, and she's doing that through acting out a little story. So think about how you can incorporate story in your little group times, in your partner play that you might engage in during continuous provision, because this is really powerful. So you're using a medium that is really familiar to the children. It's something that they want to do. She's also using a puppet, which is another way that she was trying to engage a group of children who are quite new to language, and regularly walking away from little group times. But by having resources that they can handle, by having little props, by having little characters, by having a puppet, using lots of facial expression, she's managing to keep these children engaged for quite a long time and reinforce more language that is new to them. So think about the power of acting out a story that then the children can do independently. You can add language that you know the children will be able to incorporate in their own play. That's how we facilitate and really make sure that we're building on the children's interests and the way that they like to learn, the way that they find language enticing and interesting to them. If it's out of reach, they're unlikely to participate. If it's at their level, then they're likely to go with it and reenact it and rehearse it. And I'm sure you've seen that many times when children act out what you've done with them on different occasions. So role play really does offer the opportunity for children to experiment with language, and they go out of their comfort zone and they may use words that they wouldn't ordinarily try. So this practitioner is joining the play of a child who is telling his own story. His story is about going to put a fire out. He's inviting another child, one of his peers, with the facilitation of the adult, because he wouldn't normally invite a peer into his play, but she's made him feel safe about it, and they're going off to extinguish their fire. So she's there to add language and to also support with the collaboration aspect of acting out and involving another child. But she's really taking the lead from the child. This is his story, and she's just carefully adding to it. So I also wanted to mention another two really well-evidenced strategies that educators can use to enhance children's development generally. We know that back and forth conversation is supported by a lot of research. This is really going to make a difference to children's development. It's going to help promote their communication and language and extend their thinking. We also know that scaffolding, so the adult helping a child extend what they're doing when something is slightly out of reach for them, that scaffolding is really going to make a difference. This is why we can't only rely on having a really well-resourced space. Our interactions with the children within that space is what really, really makes the difference. So this blog here, Improving Early Education Through High Quality Interactions, is also a really nice quick read for you to go away and revisit the back and forth conversation, the scaffolding, the idea of interactive reading, and to share with the rest of your team. So I'm hoping that at this point you've thought about some actions that you're going to take. They might be around the delivery, the initial delivery of your story, where you're exposing children to that new language, where you're using facial expression, using rhythm, using tone of voice, drawing attention to particular words by chanting them, by inventing a jingle or a song, or dressing up or maybe the props and visuals that you want to incorporate with every story. Your actions might be around developing your skill with interactive reading, developing your ability to really attend to what the child is saying and build on that. Think about how you're going to reinforce words. How will you give children opportunities to practice those new words that you've exposed them through a story that you've chosen? So there's a lot there to think about. It's really useful for you to take this time now to really hone in on a particular practice that you want to develop, so that you are really actioning from the session today. And you may have some questions around something that I've not covered. These last 2 pages are links, direct links to useful blogs, the interactive reading video that I mentioned, and some further reading for you, and also the free child development training. And also, I've incorporated some really helpful